All right, so we're back on the 2010 through 25 4Runner Limited, and we're going to be installing our micro guards on the front of the vehicle. Now, like I mentioned in the intro, the installation sequence for the deletes, the micros, the mid-mudflaps, and the full-size mudflaps are the same on the front and rear of this vehicle, and they're mirrored from the passenger to the driver's side. So we're just going to go through this once as the sequence is the same. And we're going to go from there. So the first thing we're going to want to do is identify the front and the rear of the product. And again, the front is going to have a logo on it that says driver, and the rear is going to have driver as well. Now the front is always going to be naturally a little bit smaller. With regard to the micros, you're going to have this angled bend line here, and then we also are putting in this groove line here because we realize that some guys may be rubbing when we go and put this thing into position here with their wheels against the body mount. So we're putting this groove line here. If you are rubbing up in this area here, just take a razor knife and just cut along that line, bend this thing out a couple times, and now all of a sudden you've got more clearance. It's not going to impact the rigidity of the part itself because it's still mounted up right there. This one up here, if you're not rubbing right now, it just gives you a little more meat to bite into. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start the installation, and we're going to start on the front end. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, if you haven't already, or if this is still on your vehicle, this little flap here, we're going to go ahead and take that off. If you have a rivet puller, great. If you don't, a little flathead screwdriver will be perfect in this area. So we're just going to go and get behind those little buttons there, pull this thing off. Okay, I'm going to put those off to the side. Let's take a 10mm socket. Go ahead and just pull that off, throw that off. We're not going to need that moving forward. Okay, so the next order of business here is to go ahead and remove these 3 bolts. So again, we've got a 10mm socket. Okay, and we're going to put that off to the side. Now, one of the things that I also want to call out here is the bolts that come off the vehicle are coarse thread. The bolts that we supply are fine thread. I'm going to show you here in a minute. It doesn't matter. The female grommets that these things go into will accept both fine and coarse thread bolts. So just know that as we're kind of going through that. I'll show you how those install here in a second. And then we've got one more rivet here that we're going to remove. And again, a little flathead screwdriver or a rivet puller will work. Okay, so now that we have the hardware, the OEM hardware out, we're going to again identify the front section. It's always going to look like this candy cane here, and the Ark logo always faces towards the rear, and it's going to go into those locations there. Now, one of the things that you're going to see right out of the gate here is that there's a little bit of a gap between the flap itself and the mounting location, which is why we give you guys these bend lines. So what we're going to do is bend this thing back towards the body, and then we're going to bend this up to give it a nice angled back into that mounting location. Now this stuff is super flexible, so we can go ahead, and if you need more bend, you can bend it a little further. You can bend it up a little bit harder. So it's super flexible, it's super forgiving, and it's got great memory. So once it's bent, it's going to be that way, and it'll stay that way. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and secure this thing with a 3/4 inch bolt. Now this is a 4mm Allen head, and we're going to start right up here at the top. And make sure this thing is, of course, you know, if you're not dropping things, you're not doing it right. Okay, so let's go ahead and put that in. 3rd time's a charm. Okay, so again, fine thread into a female grommet on the truck. no problem. All right, so we got 2 more of those. All right, so we don't want to tighten them down too far now. So the next order of business here is to get these 9mm push rivets installed there. Okay, there we go, nice and tight there. We've got one more 3/4 inch bolt. I'm going to slam into the back here. Alright. You can just hear how tight that is. It's nice. Alright, then we got one more 7.5 inch Christmas tree rivet that goes. Alright, so that rivet's in there, and you can see here how this thing's kind of coming together there on the side of the vehicle. Really nice, really clean. Alright, so then we're going to go through and tighten these things up. Alright, and that is installed. So that is the front micro flare on the 2010 through 25 4Runner Limited. Again, the installation sequence here regarding these bolts, the 7.5, the 9mm, and the 3/4 inch bolt on the inside is the same on the Mud Delete, Mid-Mudflap, and the full-size, and it's the same on both the driver and the passenger side. We're going to get to the rear of the vehicle next. Stay tuned. Okay, so now we are on the rear of the 2010 through 25 4Runner Limited. We're going to be installing our rear micro flare, but as I mentioned in previous videos here, the installation sequence on the Delete, micro flare, Mid-Mudflap, and full-size Mudflap is the same on the rear of the vehicle. And it is mirrored between the driver's side and the passenger side. So let's get into the installation of the rear. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is go ahead and remove these 3 rivets here. Again, flathead screwdriver or a rivet puller will work great. Sometimes they need a little persuasion. We are providing you with new rivets, so don't worry about the ones that are on the vehicle. Okay, got one down there. Temperamental rivet. So now we grab our 10mm socket, make sure it's going the right way. Okay, there's one on the inside here. And there's one back in there. Okay, now that delete is off. All right, so one of the things that we are going to advise you guys do here is on this guy here, if you have a female grommet, go ahead and take that out and use a U-nut that we are going to supply and just slide that over that hole there. The reason for that is the flaps need a little bit more rigidity back here, so a bolt through the U-nut is going to work a little bit better. Now again, keep these female grommets in place. That female grommet, that female grommet, that female grommet, that female grommet. and our bolts will go ahead and thread into those locations. So next thing we do is identify the, in this case we got the micro guard, the micro flare that's going to fit into this location here. And the installation sequence here is the same, again, for the delete, the micro flare, the mid-size flap, and the full-size flap. Ark logo always faces towards the rear of the vehicle. And very similar to the front, we have a little section back here where the flap needs to bend. So we got these blood lines in here, so we're going to go ahead and bend that accordingly. Okay, so you can see we've got a little angle like that, and now that's going to go right back into that location there. Perfect. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start with our 1/2 inch bolt. The 1/2 inch bolt is going to go into the top mounting location. Again, that is a 4mm Allen head there. So we're going to go ahead and do. Okay, so we have the 1/2 inch bolt secured. Now we're going to take our 3/4 inch bolts, and these are going to go into the U-nut. You can see here this thing kind of rests on top of this plastic piece right there, like so. Okay, so we're going to take our 3/4 inch bolt, put that into position again, get it in there. Alright, that's going to prevent it from moving around. Alright, so then we've got our next 3/4 inch bolt that's going into the U-nut. Okay. I've got 2 more 3/4 inch bolts. Again, you're not going to want to tighten these things down too far, because sometimes these holes need to be adjusted up just a little bit, and you can move this thing around a little bit. Next one is going to be this inner. It might be tough to find, so you got to kind of wiggle it around until you find it. Too tight yet, and then all the way back in here we get another one. That thing is almost fully installed, so let's just make sure these holes are good and lined up there. You can kind of move this thing around a little bit because it's not fully secured quite yet. So then you take your 8.5mm rivets, lift this thing up, put it into that location, that location, that location. Take your 4mm Allen again, just tighten all of them up. And that is the install of the rear micro flare on the 2010 through 15 4Runner Limited. So as I mentioned before, the installation sequence on the standard mud delete, the micro flare, the mid-mud flap that comes down about 3.5 inches, and the full-size mud flap that comes down about 7 inches is the exact same on the rear of the vehicle, on both the driver and the passenger side. They're mirrored, and the product installation sequence is the same. So go ahead and follow this regardless of the type of product that you ordered, whether it was the delete, the fender flare, the mid-mud flap, or the full-size flap. If you guys got any questions, please let us know. Appreciate your business. Thank you again.